Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for October 26th through November 1st. This week I read 2 books, I watched 3 movies, I watched 3 shows, and I listened to 2 books. And there's some honorable mentions. I filmed a few videos in this room over the year, which has changed purposes many times over the year. Currently you're sitting on top of a keyboard because my aunt is learning how to play. And the only light in this actual room is controlled by a switch that's behind the mirror that's behind me, so we're just using the natural light from this window. Because let me tell you, I found a stick and I tried to poke it behind the mirror and I couldn't get it to work, so we're just going with this. The first book that I finished this week is Hercules Bourbon, and this one was of note to me because this is an example of a memoir by somebody who is intersex from the 1800s, writing about their life and their experiences. However, we don't have their full memoir. We don't actually know if they wanted to publish this memoir because they refer to themselves by a completely different name in the memoir. So is it memoir or is it fiction? We don't actually know. But because this book also includes a bunch of historic documents, we do know that this person was in fact intersex. Although I do think it's fabulous that we have this example of somebody from so long ago that is intersex, a lot of the ethics around this in particular bothered me. I talked about this at length in my October wrap-up, which just went up yesterday, so if you're interested in hearing more about that, that's in that wrap-up, and I'll just leave it there. Next, I finished a graphic novel called A Song for You and I by Kay O'Neill. This is about somebody who is a ranger, and basically what they've been training towards doing is becoming a full-time ranger. So this is somebody who has a flying horse and goes around the different kingdom and just helps out people on their adventures. Everybody's been given one last big task before the big naming day ceremony where they get to carve their names on this certain arch, and they've been given a task of basically staying near home and not really having to do all that much, which makes them feel like they can't really prove themselves, which puts them in a little bit of trouble down the line. The person they're hanging out with the most is this shepherd who spends a lot more time fiddling than actually watching the sheep, and this forced proximity means they have to go on some adventures together. And it's adorable. The art style is always beautiful. Kay O'Neill never disappoints in that department, and I thought this was really sweet and lovely. As for the shows I watched this week, I started a new show on BritBox called Happy Valley. I watched the first 3 episodes of the first series. This has a very much small town feel, and we're following this one police sergeant, I believe is her rank. I believe she's around in her 50s, she has a grown-up son, her daughter has passed away, and she's actually raising her grandson, who I believe is 7 or 8 at this point. There's also other interesting family dynamics, like her and her husband are divorced, but sometimes they see each other on the sly, which I'm just like, he's married to somebody else, what are you guys doing? And her sister lives with her because she used to have a drugs issue. We also find out near the beginning of this first episode that there is somebody that she finds personally responsible for the fact that her daughter is no longer alive, and he has recently been let out of prison and is back in her community, and she's not too happy about that. In addition to that, there's somebody in the community who's kind of hatched a plot, and is that going to go smoothly? From these first 3 episodes, I can say the answer is no. I'm really enjoying getting to know this whole cast of characters and trying to figure out what's going to go on from here, and if certain overarching story ideas are going to be tied up by the end of this series, or if they're going to go all the way through this 3 series that we have of this show. This week I of course also watched the season finale of Jetlag Tag Across Europe, which was so much fun. And a couple of different things that are particular to this cast of people happened. For example, there was once where they used a graphic where they just kind of put people on the screen and then listed their birth date and their death date, and that death date actually happened for one of these people in this episode. And of course they were dealing with Deutsche Bahn, which never goes well. This week we also watched the 8th episode of the 20th season of Taskmaster, always a good time. We also watched a bunch of the outtakes from this season because we were waiting for the premiere, because they decided to premiere this one at like 3 o'clock when it's usually just been up by the time we go to watch it. And that's always a fun time to see what was cut for time and see how long certain sections actually went on. As for honorable mentions, I did want to say, while people were constantly ringing our doorbell trick-or-treating, we did watch a few episodes of The Simpsons Halloween specials, the Treehouse of Horror specials. There was also this really big sports game that was on last night that probably anyone who cares about sports knows about, and because it was Game 7 of the World Series, I watched that, and you know, that was disappointing. And to get the taste of that out of our mouths, my aunt and uncle are currently rewatching Stranger Things before the new season comes out, so we watched the last 2 episodes of the 2nd season. On to the movies I watched this week, the first one being The Invisible Man, the new one that came out, I think it was 5 years ago actually. I think I've seen the original, but I would have seen it many years ago. So I knew kind of the concept. There's a guy who's figured out how to be invisible, and that's freaky. And I like that this was updated to include like different technology that could potentially do this. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, honestly. We are following a woman who has escaped an abusive relationship and then she finds out that her partner has actually died. But then weird things start happening and she has the feeling that he is not in fact dead. This was absolutely so well done and I very much enjoyed this. It was very haunting at points. Then, because again, the trick-or-treaters, we wanted to put on something that we could watch, but it was fine if we got interrupted, we watched Dracula Dead and Loving It, which I feel like we watch every year. If you've never seen it before, it is basically the tale of Dracula with a few minor details switched up here and there, but it is a comedy and it is very slapstick and very funny. After that, because my roommate had somehow never seen it before, we watched The Shining. And going into this, I forgot that when I originally watched this movie, I also found it really slow-paced at points, and when I originally watched it, I was watching it on television and I ended up turning it off before it ended because it was so slow-paced and because I'd read the book before so I knew what happened, and then I was mad at myself because I missed the iconic "Here's Johnny" section of it, which honestly, kind of the best section of the movie. I'm not saying the rest of the movie isn't good, I'm just saying that is the most iconic bit. As for what I listened to this week, first we have The Moment of Lift, and this book talks about a lot of different sociological things, one of them being the fact that humans like to create outsiders, and it actually benefits society if you take those outsiders and bring them back into society and treat them like the humans that they are. Additionally, a really big section of this is talking about problem solving and trying to figure out exactly what the problem is, but then what the problem is from a cultural standpoint, because if you don't do that, you're not going to be able to change whatever's going on. There were lots of different sections of this that I found absolutely fascinating, and I do recommend it. And then, just to extend the Triple October vibes into November, I did listen to a recording of The Raven, which if I can find it again on YouTube, I will link down below because it had the text on the screen at the same time as the narrator, and the narrator's voice was really good. This is one of those poems I had never actually gotten around to reading before because most of it is reproduced by one of the episodes of Treehouse of Terrors on The Simpsons, so I knew the gist of it, and a lot of the actual lines of it are in that, but I figured it was time to finally get around to actually reading the poem. I was mostly impressed by being able to keep up that rhyming scheme. It is a difficult rhyming scheme at some points, and yet it seemed so easy. And because of that combination, it comes off as such an eerie vibe, and I enjoyed it. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down in the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you happen to be on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that, as always, is down below. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!